Hello everybody. I would like to go step by step through a problem here in natural deduction in order to show you how to um, deduce a conclusion from the premises that you're given. So this is chapter 7 in your book here that I'm walking through. I'm just going to give you a problem. I'm going to do each step myself and explain it to you as I go along. Okay? So here is an argument here that I have written. I hope you can see that. First premise is G and H or G and J. Second premise is G or K, horseshoe, not L. So if G or K, then not L. And our conclusion, which is indicated here at the end of the second premise by that slash, is not L. So now what I need to show here through natural deduction is that this is a valid argument. So I'm going to provide a proof here. So what I'm showing is that not L, which is our conclusion, can be derived from these two premises by applying the rules that are in our book. So we have rules of implication and we have rules of replacement. So when I look at this argument, the first thing I want to do is I want to see which rules I can apply to these premises in order to isolate our conclusion, which is not L. So I look at the first premise, and I look at my rules here, and I try to find a rule that will allow me to change around that first premise. So what I find is I find distribution. I see the rule of distribution will allow me to change the first premise into a new form. So my third line will look like this. Okay? Third line, G and H or J, line 1 had the rule distribution applied to it. So we just keep track of which line we've applied the rule to and which rule we've applied. So now we've changed around that first premise into a form that's going to allow us to derive the not L eventually. Now, we look at our second premise and try to figure out if there's anything we need to do to that, or we look at our new third premise and see if we can manipulate that in some way that's going to allow us to eventually derive our conclusion. And I see in line 3, there's more I can do to this premise. I can change it still further. So I go on to line 4. What I find is that the simplification rule will allow me to drop out the H or the J and to isolate the G by itself. So by applying simplification to line 3, I'm left with just a G. Now, if you look at the second premise, what you see is I need an or K added to that G, and I need the horseshoe, which is going to allow me to get the not L. So I still have to manipulate this problem. So I look at line 4 and I think I can apply another rule that's going to allow me to add the or K. That's the rule of addition here that we've added. Let me get that on camera. G, now line 5 is G or K, because to line 4 we've applied the rule addition. So now we have the G or K, but we're still not finished. We still need to find another rule that's going to allow us to put in our horseshoe and our not L. So I look at the rules again and now I have to add line 6. See, now what I'm able to do here is I'm able to look at line 2, premise 2, and I'm able to look at the premise I've now changed in line 5, and I see that's a case of modus ponens. So when I combine those two lines, I'm able to derive my conclusion there on line 6. So now this problem is finished. I've now completed the problem. I've shown that the conclusion can be derived from the premises. Okay? Let me go ahead and do another one in order to help us along here. Let's get a sheet of paper. Let me draw this up really quickly. Here's our problem that we'll work with. We have the first premise, which is if A, then B. We have the second premise, which is if B or C, then D and E. We have the third premise, which is just A, and then we have our conclusion, which is D. Now, I look this over, and I want to show how D can be derived from these premises after applying our rules of natural deduction. Okay, so I take a look here, and I see that when I look at line 1 and 3, that's a case of modus ponens. So I can now apply the rule modus ponens, which I'll do here in line 4, to lines 1 and 3. And I'm left with B. You see that? So now I've transformed. What I've done really is I've looked at the three premises and tried to find a rule I can apply to start transforming this, breaking it down into a form that's going to allow me to draw out D as the conclusion. So let's look for more rules we can apply here. I do see that 2 and 4 is going to give me an opportunity to apply the addition rule. And so that's what I'm going to do here. No. Actually, what I want to do, which is a better tactic, I think, is to just apply the rule of addition to 4. That's going to allow me to get the B or C. So that's what I do here. So I've now applied addition to line 4, and we now have B or C. Now I want to look for other rules that I can apply. I want to get the D and the E isolated in some way. So what I do is, first, why do I want to get the D and the E isolated? Well, I want to get it by itself so I can just get the D out of there, right? I want to get the D by itself. I want to isolate the D, right, in order to show that it can be derived from these premises. Okay, so I look at line 6 here, and I see that there's a case of modus ponens here in lines 2 and 5 that I can apply. So I do. So there, I have line 6. Now I have something I can work with. Now it's going to be much easier to get that D by itself. I can already see a rule. I can look at line 6 and I see through simplification, I can just isolate the D, and the problem will be finished. So this is what it looks like as a complete problem. Now you see what we've done is we've changed around our premises by applying the rules in order to get them in a form that will allow us to just isolate the conclusion by itself. In this case, the conclusion's D. So what we did there was in our first line, we isolated the B, and then we were able to add the B or C, which allowed us to use modus ponens to isolate D and E. And once we had D and E, it was easy to apply the rule of simplification to just get D. So that's a finished problem. So I really hope this helped you. I know some of you are struggling with natural deduction. It is the most difficult part of the course, I believe. And as you see, I've also posted an announcement. There's a possibility that we can meet on Thursday at 3:50 in room A114 on the Harrisburg campus. So that would be Thursday the 21st at 3:50 in A114. Thank you.